Dr. Anderson is no stranger to our show, and even though he's been on it a lot, we thought we'd mix it up a bit this week. Instead of just having Harry talk about horse nutrition in the studio, I invited him down to my ranch to discuss his background in animal nutrition as well as the feed program he's developed. I know that you formulated Total Equine, but a lot of people have asked me since you've been on our show is what makes you qualified to formulate horse feed?
To tell you a little bit about my background, I received a PhD in actually swine nutrition in 1970. That's many years ago. My first job out of school was as an assistant professor at the University of Wyoming. There I was working with many species, and that's where I got interested in doing equine nutrition because people came to me there with problems about nutritional things with horses, and at that time I formulated a mineral program for some horses that really worked well. Then I kind of put that on the shelf for quite a few years because I did, from there I went to ruminant nutrition. I did a lot of feedlot work and a lot of range work, but about 10 years ago I remembered what I'd done back then, and I had a lot of people talking to me about equine problems. So I started reformulating that program and taking that mineral package and expanding it into a complete program. And first I started working with a pelleted product that worked great, and then I was encouraged to try extruding feed, and lo and behold, with my basic mineral package, my vitamin package, coupled with the extrusion process, has come to be something that's actually better than I expected as far as performance in horses and what it's doing to better horses, both health-wise, hoof-wise, mentally. Horses are more stable on this program, and so it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a fun road to travel to get to this point.
Not being a nutritionist, but being someone's fed horses pretty much all my life, I could see that the extrusion process that this feed went through should make it a lot more simple to digest. Outside out here I got a little Shetland mare that belongs to my grandson, and she was fairly thin when I got it, and well, I can prove with my little Shetland mare out there that it'll get a horse fat.
What that does is several things. One is it releases the energy part of the ration so well, that's why your Shetland pony is able to put on a little extra body condition. If you look at the digestibility of different products or different ways of processing grain, there's a vast difference from raw grain to cracked grain to pelleted grain to extruded grain. Raw grain is not very digestible, probably 50–55% for a lot of raw grains that a horse would eat, like in sweet feeds with whole grains. If you crack that grain and make a sweet feed, that probably jumps it up to around 60–65%. If you pellet the same ingredients, you can bump that same ingredients digestibility up to around 70–75. But when you extrude it, it is over 90% digestible, and that makes all of the nutrients more bioavailable.
Right. I've been feeding Total Equine for probably a year and a half now, and myself and my horse sure have observed a lot of difference in their hoof conditions.
Well, I have a special mineral package and amino acid package that helps that. That's the hoof growth, the hoof texture, and if you get this right, you should increase the hoof growth by about 50% over typical programs. Now, some people think that's a negative, some think it's a positive. But in the process, you get a thicker hoof wall and a more pliable hoof wall. And that's what the farriers pick up on, is that they trim easier, they're softer to trim, yet they have an extreme toughness to them.
And then just riding them, their temperament, I can tell that they're a lot easier to get along with.
The mentality, that comes from an ingredient or nutrition package, again, that I have inside this program. When you're going to do something special like rope, all of a sudden they get a little uptight. That's because the nervous system is overreacting to a normal stimulus. In order for my finger to move, I have to send a nerve signal from my brain down to that finger, and it has to go through a whole series of these nerve pieces. if those synapses, which that's what they're called, aren't functioning properly and don't have the right nutrients, that either may not fire well and I can't move the finger, or it fires too much and my finger becomes spastic. That's really what's happening in the body when they overreact. How do we do this? We provide choline in the diet that produces acetylcholine, which is one of the critical chemicals in this synapse. You have to have the right level of calcium and magnesium and potassium and some other things. But one thing that not too many people have looked at over the years is a sugar called fucose, F-U-C-O-S-E, which is not well known but very important in the body. This fucose sugar comes from a special species of seaweed that we have in my formulation. This sugar, and it's documented in science that if you increase the level of this sugar in the blood of laboratory rats, it increases their long-term memory. If you decrease it or block this level of fucose sugar in the laboratory rat, they have amnesia. So it's very, very critical for nerve function, which includes the brain. And that's in a roundabout way, and maybe more details than you want, but that tells you why your horses are a little more calm and a little more focused when you're going to do an event with them. One thing this feed does, and probably the most noticeable thing in any animal, is that it increases blood flow. The Ascophyllum nodosum that I have in it, that I hadn't mentioned so far
today. That's that old big word that I have trouble saying.
But Ascophyllum nodosum is simply a species of seaweed that I use for everything.
Well, yeah, but where in the world did you come up with seaweed to feed a horse?
It came out of the cattle business, actually. It's documented in science to improve immune function in feedlot cattle, improve quality grade, improve heat tolerance. Heat tolerance, that's where the key is. We know by science that it'll allow a cow in hot weather to not seek shade, not go to the pond even in the hottest day. They'll go out and graze. So I thought, well, if it does that for a cow, why wouldn't it help a horse that's out trying to work in hot weather? And sure enough, it does.
Harry, thanks for all that you've done for the show and for bringing such a great product like Total Equine to the horse market. We hope to continue to get your input on how to improve our horses' nutrition and make a healthy, happy horse.